Hello everyone. My name is David, and today I'm going to be the moderator of our webinar on the topic of mastering optimal container management, and more importantly, the role of data and technology in mastering optimal container management. Today we have guests from Transmetrics and Youredi. Both companies are leaders in providing high-tech solutions specifically for the sectors of transport and logistics. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. During our webinar, we're going to find out more about the trends on the market and why data is the backbone of efficient container management. Furthermore, we will understand the link between data and efficiency, especially in the context of shipping container market. Moreover, you will find out the power of data-driven container management, as well as the challenges that data integration presents and how to overcome those. Finally, you will understand how Transmetrics and Youredi can help you to improve efficiency, reduce costs, and ensure data-driven container management. So to briefly present you with our speakers today, first we have Mark, the Director of Business Development at Youredi, who serves as a dedicated ambassador for innovative approaches to data integration. He possesses a deep understanding of the challenges faced by stakeholders in the global supply chain and logistics sectors on a daily basis. With this expertise, Mark empowers Youredi's customers with highly efficient solutions, allowing them to flourish in the most competitive markets. Mark will enlighten us on why Youredi stands as the leading provider of fully managed data connectivity solutions for logistics and the global supply chain. He will also illustrate how the company can play a pivotal role in driving the growth of your business. Welcome, Mark, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, David. Good to be here.
Thank you. Next, we have Dimitar, the Chief Growth Officer at Transmetrics. Dimitar is an expert in the logistics field with strong skills in technology and data analysis. With a rich international background and extensive experience in account management, sales, and international transport, Dimitar brings a wealth of expertise to the table. He specializes in revolutionizing container operations through data-driven insights. Today, Dimitar will shed light on how carriers can harness Transmetrics' cutting-edge data technologies to optimize their container management strategies, effectively addressing challenges and unlocking new opportunities within the industry. Welcome, Dimitar, and thank you for joining us today as well.
Thanks, Dave. Happy to share our experience.
Before giving you the word, I'd like to mention to the audience that at the end of our webinar, we're going to have a Q&A session. So please feel free to write down all the questions you have, either in the questions tab or directly in the chat. So thank you. Dimitar, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Dave. So let's start with a short introduction of who we are and what we do. Transmetrics is in a nutshell is a software company that improves logistics planning and asset management by the help of implementing artificial intelligence, big data analytics, and that, as a result, benefits global shipping lines and equipment managers in general by providing them full equipment and cost visibility, by helping them forecast demand and assess the optimal stock levels across their locations and network, and last but not least, helps them most effectively and cost efficiently to manage the flows across the network. We have done projects with some of the largest companies out there, with global and regional shipping lines spanning from Singapore in Southeast Asia, all through Middle East and Europe, up to. But before I give you more details of how they benefit of our solutions, I would like to start from the status quo. Where are we today? What's the state of the industry today? And then if we go to the next slide, instead of giving you 100 charts, I think this quote says it all. That basically, even though the situation does not look catastrophic in terms of rates, the costs are much higher than previously. And by the way, this presentation was compiled a couple of days ago. Since then, rates plummeted further. So the situation today is even worse than it was just 10 days ago. And obviously, shipping lines have a lot of ways to control costs. But the most recent one is blank sailings and stuff that actually kind of represent a compromise with the quality they provide to their customers, something that ruins their image across their customer bases. But there are also other things that they can try to influence that are not influenceable. Things like the new build costs. Keep in mind, the majority of the vessel capacity that enters service today was purchased at sky-high rates. Fuel costs are high and growing by the minute. And obviously, inflation is something that plays a role in terms of wages, costs associated with wages, with operational expenses, and stuff like that, shipping lines have no impact whatsoever on this. However, there is another kind of silver lining, another area where they can improve their operations, cut costs without making a compromise with quality. And that's exactly optimizing their empty container management through data and technology. If we go to the next slide, you can see that this is plays a pivotal role when it comes to seeing our historical efficiency, when it comes to predicting the future, and combining this kind of historical efficiency overview with the future projections that can lead to significantly improving the future planning. When it comes to the past, once again, we provide full equipment and cost visibility. When it comes to the future, we predict full container demand, empty container pickups, empty container returns, and as a result, we're able to define the optimal stock levels. And then again, in order to convert this kind of information into valuable insights, we provide the full equipment flow optimization. Let's start, and I would elaborate on all these three one by one. When we talk about the first one, let's say historical efficiency overview, this is very often hindered by the fragmented. Yeah, we can go to the next slide, Dave. Thank you. Well, this is very often hindered by the fragmented system landscape across many of the shipping lines out there, and then we also see this indeed. You know that actually Hapag, if I take the same example, was one of the front runners in terms of equipping their entire fleet with IoT devices, with tracking devices. The majority of shipping lines work with something called TMS or logistics ERP. For some of them, the financial system seems to be the same. For others, they have yet another system. And when it comes to container management, equipment planning is predominantly done in Excel. Now, this results in a lot of different data coming with different structure, different format, some of which is still manually generated. So in total, this results in having a lack of visibility. And I'm not talking about high-level visibility. I'm talking about the detailed level visibility, where you can see out of your, let's say, 10% gross margin, where it's 12, where it's 8, where it's 15, where it's loss-making. Hello?
Yes, we lost you there for a moment, Dimitar.
Okay, but I should be back, right?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, sorry to you and the audience. The entire neighborhood is without internet. They're changing some cables, so apologies for that. Where was I? There is a lack of visibility, and this fragmentation plays a role in that. So that's why it's very important to find the right partner with the right integration tools to help you kind of streamline your data. Once this is done, once the data quality is improved, we can go to the next slide and see some practical examples of reporting that can be done. Something as simple as container utilization, D&D charges, by the way, please note we're talking about automated way to do this, not through hundreds of Excels in order to monitor this. We're talking about alerts indicating that things go out of the ordinary. We're talking about following equipment stocks and their development from the past, present, and the future. Furthermore, mapping container events and container costs, we are able to provide very detailed storage reporting, monitoring on stevedoring, repositioning, M&R costs, basically all your cost component that you can think that are part of container management. Furthermore, something very important to monitor the long-standings and first-in, first-out violations for two reasons. One is because this may result in hidden gate-out billing costs, which can be quite hefty. But maybe more importantly, this can lead to some containers being lost or being kind of forever disappearing from the network just because they were forgotten at a particular angle in a depot somewhere around the world. So these are very important points here. And that's the first layer of value. If we go further, I can go into the second layer of value, which goes into the future. When we think about the traditional resource and capacity planning, on the left-hand side, you can see that the yellowish line is fluctuating, and that represents the demand. And of course, just a couple of months and years ago, the demand was going over the supply, especially post-COVID. And then you can see the supply that's in the low and high season is quite static. And obviously, there might be several low and high seasons, but still, there is a lot of static planning over there. Thus, we would like to move to a picture on the right-hand side, where supply and demand really go shoulder to shoulder. Of course, there is still buffers. There is still, reserve capacity, safety stocks, or whatever you call it, depending on the terminology you use. But the fact is that despite these buffers or safeties, the picture can be much better aligned, and the gap between supply and demand can be much lower. And that happens with the help of artificial intelligence. And that is true when we talk about full container demand. If we go to the next slide, we can see that from the full container demand, we can derive even more value. Basically, all of the companies know their current stocks. That's there's no question about it. Then the full container demand comes in place as a next step. And then from the full container demand, we're able to statistically model and see what are the pickup and return patterns from the past and apply them for the future. Obviously, there is this gray area where you have M&R activities and other complications, but for the simplification reasons of this presentation, let's leave that aside. So we have the full container demand, we have the forecast for the empty pickups and empty returns, and knowing what our current stocks are, we're able to see whether a particular location. Righty, I think I should be back.
You're back.
Let me know if I'm back. Yeah, again.
Knowing the stocks, we can see.
Yeah. Thank you, Dave. Yeah, knowing the stocks and the previous items I enlisted, we're able to see whether a particular combination of asset type and location are in the excess or shortage status. And knowing that, we know from where we need to evacuate or resupply to. And that's exactly what the third level of value exhibited on my next slide talks about. If we move further, you can see that obviously in order to produce mathematically feasible but also operationally feasible picture, we need to incorporate all the network constraints out there. Things like vessel capacity, vessel allocation, depot terminal capacity, stevedoring constraints, drought constraints, basically everything that affects your transit times, everything that needs to be taken into consideration when it comes to empty container repositioning. So that's the automation part of your empty container management planning. There is also an optimization part which comes on top, which makes sure that when a repositioning plan is being proposed, all the cost components are being taken into consideration. What I mean by that, well, not only the repositioning, but also stevedoring, MNR, handling, gate in, gate out, storage, a very important component, by the way. So we make sure that if our network allows us and the dynamic conditions on the market allow us to have just-in-time kind of resource planning, we reposition to the most expensive storage locations just a few maybe days or a few weeks in advance, but not before that, because this will result in a hefty storage bill at the end of the month. So to sum up, to some extent, it's very important to consider all network constraints to make a operationally feasible automation, but also in order to make it optimal one, we consider all the possible costs, see what the total of this cost results in, and then the optimization is picking up the most efficient way to reposition your equipment across the network in order to be able to satisfy 100% of the expected demand. And with that, I would pass the ball to Mark to give us a better overview of state-of-art integration techniques out there that are a very important component to all of these fancy things that I just described.
Thank you, Dimitar. Before giving the word to Mark, I'd like to once again remind our audience that at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. So don't be shy and ask the questions you have in the chat or in the questions tab. Thank you. Mark, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dimitar. Thank you, David. Yes, so my name is Mark, and I'm the Director of Business Development at Youredi. And what we do at Youredi is basically that we connect the dots of the supply chain to create data connectivity, to make sure that all the stakeholders speak the same language and can exchange data, which is vital for their business. And as Dimitar already explained, data is not located at just in one system. It is fragmented among different parties and players within the supply chain, and in different systems and platforms and in different extensions. So that is why this data connectivity is so crucial. On the next slide, we show a short picture of Youredi. So basically, our solutions are built on Youredi's proprietary iPaaS, and we can exchange data and transform data within our iPaaS from any extension or any format or any protocol. Our solutions have a fully managed service, meaning that we have off-the-shelf products. We have a lot of existing connectivities, but at the same time, we're also able to alter or to add new connections so that it always fits the need of our customers. If we look at the connectivity that we have a broad ecosystem, as we call it. And we also have many different kinds of customers. We have multimodal connectivity within the supply chain, and customers of us, and I understand and I appreciate that the logos on the right-hand side are very small to read probably, but customers range from ocean carriers such as Maersk, Sim, or Pacific International Lines, but also freight forwarders like Kuehne + Nagel, to shippers or companies that provide a TMS, a WMS, or an ERP system. If we look at these at our ecosystem, we have connected with a lot of parties, leading parties for road modality, but also for air. But for this webinar, ocean connectivity is the main focus. So I can say that for the ocean connectivity, we have integrated with the top 10 ocean carriers, and also several between the top 10 and the top 20, through which we provide all kinds of messages which go from booking confirmations, shipping instructions, to sailing schedules, track and trace, transportation documents, etc., etc. And the reason actually why for this webinar the ocean connectivity and ocean carriers are the primary focus is something we can see on the next slide. So today, 80% of the global cargo is transported via ocean containers. And that creates a necessity for shippers to make sure that they have good connectivity with these ocean carriers so they can also manage this transportation of the cargo. And as said in the previous slide, through this connectivity, there are bookings, track and trace. So the exchange of data is crucial, especially because shippers rely on log-tech solutions, on TMSs, apologies, to actually share this kind of data. And this will create also some challenges. So on the next slide, we can see that even though those modern log-tech solutions are fairly efficient, most of the times they are focused on API solutions. However, especially the ocean carrier industry is not only working with EDI and is predominantly based still with some legacy systems, legacy EDI infrastructures. Edifact on CX12, and they also have different protocols, AS2 or SFTP. So that means you need to bridge the gap between EDI and API. So that's why it's important to be able or to have a partner that is able to arrange for both. So that is that is actually the main challenge. And even though our name is a bit misleading, no, we can still go back to the previous slide, David.
Right.
Thanks. So even in our name, Youredi, there was the word EDI. We do EDI and API predominantly to make sure that we are actually a party that can bridge this gap. But even though there are still multiple standards being applied, the DCSA is one of them, but not all carriers use the same standards, do not have them yet. For some elements like track and trace, there are some well-known standards, but for instance, for the booking cycle, there is no standard yet, or at least no API. And it will take some time before everyone is using the same standards, and most of the parties are using API. So you need to bridge this gap as well. And even then, if we talk about ADI and API, it is not that every party is using the exact same formats, the exact same protocols. So there are many dialects, so to say. So every carrier will have its own solution or its own dialect, so to speak. Yes, David, you can go to the next slide. So what's important is that you need to, when addressing these challenges, either you need to do it yourself or you need to find the right partner. What we see lately is that many companies see actually that there are so many options, so many differences. So an in-house solution is very difficult. It is very costly as well. And it is not just about building those connections, but also maintaining all of those connections. So therefore, it's very important that if you work with partners that you find the right technology partner. And it is very important that this partner is familiar with the ocean logistics domain. So it should combine both experience with the ocean logistics industry, so also including familiarity with the business processes and standards, but it should also possess the technology capable of streamlining the new onboarding and the data exchange. If we look at the offered data integration solution, it also needs to be flexible enough so that it also enables you as a shipper to, for instance, or a TMS provider to add new connections and to grow and help your customers with the new connections that they find necessary to grow the business. So that means that it is because setting up these connections could take long, especially when there are parties that work with older systems or hardly any systems. So an ecosystem of pre-connected carriers is actually a must. And this is what I referred to in the beginning, that in the Euredi's case, that we have already a large set of the ocean carriers. And even though there are on-premise solutions, I mean, what we see, and rightly so, is that many people prioritize cloud-based services, which offer many advantages technically, but also commercially. So that is key as well. So that is also exactly why we are a cloud-based solution. So on the next slide, we show a diagram. And in order for shippers or ocean carriers, TMS providers, to actually automate the processes and leverage this data exchange, it is key that they find the right partners. Also enable to use platforms such as Transmetrics. You need to make sure that you have this good data in the change, this data exchange. And Youredi, we are not using or owning the data. As said in the beginning, we are the one where we connect multiple systems. It could be a TMS, an ERP, even third-party systems, but we connect the dots. So you, as a customer, are able to use platforms such as Transmetrics in order to leverage the data and to propel your growth.
Mhm. And if you want, Mark, here I can add a very interesting use case that we are now discussing with one of our existing customers. It's a very interesting one related to reefer failure analytics, where the idea is to connect the reefer failure logs coming either from manually generated Excels or directly connecting to the IoT devices in their reefers, to map this to the container bookings and container events, and then be able to provide, and even as a next step, to the MNR system they are using. And as a next step, we can provide the visibility of failure trends or kind of inconsistencies on a trade lane, customer, commodity, origin destination pair, equipment series if we wish. We can detect whether a particular MNR activity that's being conducted, let's say 3 months ago, results in yet another of the same failure, meaning that there was something not properly done at the first place. So streamlining all these different data sources and analyzing on top can add quite a lot of value to shipping lines, NVOCCs, and all the equipment managers out there.
Exactly. So that's thanks for the addition, Dimitar. That's really good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, David, this is the biggest part. Yeah.
So first, I'd like to thank you guys for the wonderful presentation. I'd like to wrap it up before going to the Q&A session, and say that we have uncovered how you can ensure visibility and process integrations across your entire network through streamlined data flows, seamlessly integrated data sources, and superior technology bridging the gap between EDI and API worlds. Additionally, we have found out that efficient data integration is more than just a tool. It is a service that encompasses a combination of unique industry knowledge, technology, as well as an ecosystem of sustainable partners and systems. Besides, you now know that you can forecast container demand on the most granular level and at the same time dynamically define the optimal stock levels. And last but not least, Mark and Dimitar have revealed to us that turning to just-in-time operations by considering all network costs and constraints and taking advantage of various network agreements is the path to optimizing your entire empty container management. So these are obviously not all the takeaways of today's webinar, but the most important ones. So now I'd like to mention to the audience that both Transmetrics and Youredi are going to be present at the upcoming Intermodal event from the 10th to 12th of October in Amsterdam. We're also going to have a stand, booth number H67. So please feel free to come by, say hello, and maybe have a chat in person. Here you can find some relevant materials and links under the QR codes that we have provided. I think also this presentation is going to be available and much more than that. You can also find more information about our companies and the solutions we provide, both on the websites on the screen. So yeah, thank you for participating. Now I'm going to go to the Q&A session. Actually, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So let's see what people were curious about. So one question we have is, what variables are considered to determine the level of safety stocks? Dimitar, Mark?
Maybe I can take that one. So safety stocks are very interesting use case because they, to some extent, refer to how risk-averse companies are. And obviously, this varies from company to company, from culture to culture, if you wish. But important variables are how well a particular location is connected to the rest of the network. Obviously, the most important variable is what demand is expected at this particular location and asset type. What's also very important is the transit times to resupply. How easy is basically to resupply in case of unexpected demand pops up. The connectivity options and other variables that may play a role. So these are network related constraints and variables that need to be taken into consideration.
Okay. Thank you, Dimitar. Let me see. One person is asking, did I understand correctly that with UADI solutions, we can get data via our API even though our partners are 100% EDI focused? Mark, I think that's for you.
Yeah, I can answer that one. So, yeah, that's actually correct. So, and that is also the challenge that we often see. So, there is no such thing as everyone is using API, even though that is often the core focus that you hear many times. But still, many ocean carriers use EDI, all the EDI legacy systems. So that's 100% correct. So that's one of the advantages that a partner as Youredi delivers, that we basically bridge the gap between EDI and Youredi. And we also see this when there are experts in the field. So most people do not combine the capabilities of both EDI and API.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. So to move on, we have another question: how to balance the machine learning forecast with the commercial forecast? This is in terms of machine learning versus human input.
Yeah, although we are in the automation space, I don't believe in 100% automation, at least in logistics. I think that's not going to happen ever. And here where we call that augmented intelligence, where obviously commercial forecasts can be used as an input, but we all know that commercial forecasts are exaggerated and they're not very valuable in terms of how trustful they are. And then there could be a system that analyzes purely the data, produces a system forecast. This system can, or a set of algorithms can take into consideration also the human forecast or the customer forecast. Although they are not accurate, they still hide quite a lot of potential, a lot of signals that can be used by a set of smart algorithms. And the combination of both can produce much better and much more accurate forecasts. Additionally, all forecasts could be adjusted manually as a post-processing activity, so that the planners can trust them and kind of feel the ownership and to have an understanding of how this is being built. And the more you kind of have things in control, the more trust you have in that. that, and then the more you can use these inputs for further equipment planning.
Lovely. Well, let's hope that we're gonna need the human input for a while still. Another question we have is, how
Mhm.
long does it take to start experiencing benefits from such solutions as yours within a container shipping line? I'm not sure who this question is addressed to, but guys, feel free.
I think Dimitar, you can best start.
The benefit. What's important is simply the first layer of value, which is providing equipment and cost control visibility. Can be very beneficial by itself, although it does not provide any solutions whatsoever. It's just exposing the inefficiencies across the network, and all of our clients, they're extremely skillful in the way they can tackle problems, but sometimes they are just blindfolded for these problems. And as soon as you kind of shed light on some of the inefficiencies across their network, they know how to solve them. They were just not able to see them before. So it can take just a couple of weeks before the first layer of values are being provided.
Yeah, and what I could add from your EDI's perspective is actually that because we have this connection with Transmetrics, and as also shown in some of the diagrams within the presentation, it is important that you have a partner that actually has already quite a lot of existing connectivity. So the more connectivity you have already to your system, the sooner or the quicker you'll be able to change data. From a technical point of view, building these connections, that is, well, I mean, it is our core business, but that is the easy part. What you see is there are quite some lengthy steps within this process when it comes to data, some authorization, data sharing protocols, etc. So that will take time. So it's very important that you have the right technology partner to actually shorten these times, and also a partner who provides the flexibility to add connectivity on a very short time span.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Maybe one more question. I think we have time for that. Um, so let me quickly check. In case we have information in different systems and would want to use that in conjunction with the output from Transmetrics, could UADI help with this? I think you partially covered that one, but still go ahead.
Yes, so correct, David. So that is partly covered. So what I can say is yes, the number of systems is not really relevant. So we can connect as many systems, and that's also a necessity because information is just not located in just one system. So that is exactly where we can help, and also this reduces the burden for companies on their own EDI or API teams. So what we see is that often focus is actually on creating those integrations, but they actually should also be maintained whenever side of the data interchange, if a party changes their systems or makes adjustments. So in that regard, certainly we can help with this, and then that makes also our customers able to focus actually on the things that add more value to them, because in the end connectivity is a necessity. It needs to be arranged well, but it is not an end goal. It's just a means in order to get this data exchange flowing and to leverage this data with a partner like Transmetrics. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you,
I
Mark.
absolutely agree with that.
Thank you, Dimitar. I think we have to wrap it up now. I'd like to once again thank the audience for joining us today. We have learned a lot. Thanks to Transmetrics and Youredi. We still have some questions that we did not manage to ask. However, I'm going to urge the audience to contact us either via the provided details, emails, or just come by during the upcoming Intermodal event and talk to us in person. It was lovely having you today. Both Dimitar and Mark did Awesome. Thank you also from my side. I wish everybody a good day, and goodbye.
Thank you, David,
Thank you. It
and
was
to everyone, a good
pleasure.
day.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Enjoy,
Bye-bye.
guys.